Alright, hi everyone. Gonna try to keep this somewhat pretty short because I don't know. I think I do it too long. So yeah. Hello everyone. Um let's start the video. I forgot what we did last time, so I'm just gonna okay. Where were we? We're going to Memorial 12, I believe. With that chest of bones in the back seat, a silence as heavy as a coffin door permeated the car. Not even a usual scrape of Storm's horns against the ceiling could budge it. The sounds kept us alone from acknowledging the possibility that an opportunistic cannibal might try to do the same to the Minotaur and I, should we ever meet with a similar regrettable incident. Bringing peace to their spirits would be a tall order for anyone, doubly so for the grandson of a man who enabled their massacre. Thankfully, all the brain needs is a familiar outlet to keep pretending nothing is amiss. Matters of purity and defilement have long been second nature to me as an occultist and a mythical. The logistics of our task were enough to keep me occupied. I could say the same for Storm, who squirmed in his seat and tried to lean away from the chest sitting behind him. Hollowed ground might have been our best shot for getting anything resembled of a Christian burial, but it's not like we could pay for a funeral, or even a plot of land to bury them legitimately. Likewise, questions would surely arise as to nature of the remains if anyone else were to see them. I had no intention of playing the the colonel's accomplice, or getting caught righting a wrong 2 generations old. From a ritualistic standpoint, all I could do is go back to the place that it happened, retracing the road's fateful spiral down to the otherwise unremarkable patch of land at the bottom of the skins of her. As we drew closer, I dug out 2 paperclips from the glove compartment. I handed one to Storm and then started working on the other between my fingers. Every little bit helps, I reckon. So, that is it. Where they died? Yep, shot down, all 12 of them, in an ambush during the night. Then the colonel took their corpses and did what he did. Does eating folks like us really make you immortal? Considering how the old colonel was, there might be something to it after all, but don't worry about it. It's not something most people would know about, and even few would ever think to try it. The colonel was a special case. Pity that wasn't enough to save him from his gold digger of a wife, if the gossip is to be believed. Storm opened the car's trunk and pulled out the shovels we'd bought. So we're gonna give him a Christian burial, right? You better start digging then. Don't wanna be out here when it gets dark. Right, let's get started. The dig was slow and miserable. 30 minutes went by and we'd only just barely cleared the topsoil. Given the lack of roots to hold the dirt together, I'd hoped the barren ground would yield with little effort, but instead, we had to contend with the thrice damned salt, stagnating land and water alike. Resisting every ounce of change. That's a weird sentence. As such, every blow was accompanied by a crystalline crunch when the shovel's blade managed to rip through a hidden lattice underground. By the time the hole was up to my knees, the now familiar trunk of a summer barnyard hung heavy in the air. In such close quarters, it was impossible to miss the sweat beading on Storm's brow or the dampness soaking through my shirt. Neither he or I saw fit to talk about it. Soon enough, olfactory fatigue set in, and we forgot our own stench while we worked. Emboldened by our shared purpose and shared suffering, we soldiered on. We tried to ignore the sting of recoil from each blow, the forming blisters in our hands, and the general mounting exhaustion. We dug, for the 12, the hotel, and our future. If all goes well, I thought, our wounds shall eschew. The soil quality continued to degrade, and along with it, the stability of our would-be grave. The layer of sand and silt beneath the floam threatened to collapse in on us with every fresh spadeful we removed. It was all I could do to stabilize the walls while Storm climbed out. Once prudence forced us to throw in the towel. Storm huffed and puffed and dragged his chest over the hole. Together we lowered it down as carefully as we could. At least it nestled pretty comfortably in the sandy layer we dug into. Storm pulled me back out, and we were left panting for our exertion for a few moments. As soon as we caught our breaths, it was time to begin a funerary rite. I picked up a handful of dirt, motioned for Storm to do the same, and held it out in front of me. You all didn't deserve what happened to you. I'm sorry for what my grandfather did. I hope your spirits can rest easier now. At least a little bit. I dropped the dirt into the chest. I hope y'all are getting more mercy from God now than you ever had got from the people in life. Storm dropped his dirt in as well. A single moth flew between our shoulders and passed its journey to weave and bob before the grave. Finally it flew around the hole, fluttering off into the distance as quick as its wings could carry it. What exactly were we supposed to make of that? We took another quick breather, then resumed the work of covering the grave again. Thankfully, that didn't take nearly as long. Afterwards, Storm gathered a number of stones to line the grave. I, meanwhile, returned to the car and retrieved the sunken church's cross from its spot in the back seat. The cross was a good size, about 2 hand lengths tall, and still sturdy despite spending decades underwater. Together, we managed to prop it up at the center of the mound with some more stones and salted earth. A fine Christian burial marker, if I'd ever seen one. We should probably say some kind of prayer. We both bowed our heads and closed our eyes. Silently, I recited every prayer in doxology I could ever... Okay. I recited every prayer in doxology I could remember for sure. May your souls rest in peace. Amen. We stood there for a minute, waiting for something to happen. Storm opened a single eye and looked around, then bit his lip and flicked his ears. Nothing's happening. I know. Is this how it's supposed to go? No clue. I never done this sort of thing before. Then the hotel should be popping up somewhere around here now, right? I don't know if that's how it'd work, but we can't rule it out. Seems like a place to start, at least. We drove all around the area. No luck. The hotel was nowhere to be seen. The surrounding land was just as desolate as before, but felt even more so in the sweat-soaked darkness, and the silence which permeated the car before had been replaced with the silence of fruitless exhaustion. Even if the hotel was really somewhere out there, I don't think either of us would have seen it in the state we were in. The early start must have taken a lot on us, or maybe starting the day with a good, filling breakfast of greasy cheese was catching up to us. Regardless, by sundown we were both nodding our heads and struggling to keep our eyes open. We'd been keeping quiet for at least an hour, both of us lost in our own thoughts when the kid half mumbled something. It took me a moment to realize he was asking me a question. Sorry, what was that? Sunset's pretty, ain't it? I looked ahead to the blaze of oranges and pinks dappled across the horizon. Yeah. This is nice, ain't it? Just driving around and eating meals at Lala's and having a shower every morning and sleeping in the actual bed every night. Just keep in mind this isn't a vacation, kid. Yeah, I know. It's just... ever since I met you, it feels like I've been pulled into a whole different world, you know? I couldn't help but narrow my eyes and clench my jaw. What brought this on all of a sudden? Sunset's got me thinking is all. Storm fidgeted in his hands, his fingers interlocking and fighting each other. I thought that would be the end of our conversation, but then he spoke up again. Thank you for being here. Getting this charm feels like getting another chance at life. May seem like I'm exaggerating, but you're the best person I've ever met. Don't think of me. You don't You don't have to do this goddamn reason to believe that bullshit. I'm sorry. What? I'm sorry you've been surrounded by so many shitty people that I seem like a good guy in comparison. I don't know what to believe I was expecting, but Storm laughed, without fear or shame, not really worrying about anything at all, just a deep, rumbling laugh coming from deep in his chest. You're mean on the outside, but good on the inside. Believe you me. I've met people who are real mean deep inside to know you definitely ain't that. You've been real decent to me, even though you didn't have to, and I'm grateful to you. I had to pull over the road shoulder. Wasn't sure if I was crying or not, but I turned my face away from him just in case. There were too many thoughts going through my head all of a sudden, all because of that goddamn bull. Stupid god fucking... Why did the kid being nice to me feel so much like a punch in the gut? I couldn't stop my body from tightening up and trembling as I struggled to breathe past the knot in my throat. But then Storm put his hand on my shoulder, and his sturdy grip helped me steady myself. I swallowed, wiped out my stinging eyes, and then looked over to meet his gaze. Thanks. I guess I needed that. What you say, and all that. Storm punched me on the shoulder, maybe a little bit harder than he meant to, but nothing I couldn't handle with a grace and composure. My pleasure, boss. Just tone like how it is. Then I put the car in drive and the Minotaur on my side continued searching for a way out of that labyrinth of winding roads and salted earth. When we returned to the inn, Storm insisted I take a shower. We had a whole discussion about it and how long it takes to dry my feathers. I said it was too late already. He said it wasn't because I wouldn't be sleeping anyhow. Cheeky bitch. The water's hard as stone here. I can't even get any foam going when I soap my hands. I won't be able to clean my feathers properly. I'll just get fungal infection. In the end, we reached a compromise. He'd let me be if I went to a certain place first thing in the morning. We set out at 4:30 a.m. According to his directions and my estimation, it'd take us about an hour to get there. For half an hour, I drove through the darkness, with Storm sleeping by my side in perfect silence. Storm was damn detailed about the exact way to go, at least. The landmarks came in just the right order he told me. Turned out it wasn't actually in the valley, but just outside of it. After being way down in there for about a week, climbing up into the foothills felt stupendous. Maybe a little larger than life. The long shadows down below made the place feel almost dollhouse-like in the rosy dawn. Dried up trees and houses, just little playthings to be picked up, yet almost beautiful. When you're out in the grime, you can see the place up close. The lilac sky up ahead, the red heat of dawn on my feathers, seeing the barren wasteland in the rear-view mirror as we climbed out of the hole. It felt like heaven. Storm stirred, just a wiggle to get his neck into a better position. Storm? The kid was full of attitude throughout the day, but a little angel in his sleep, and could even stay deep asleep through whatever noise I made during the night. All in all, he made sure for a decent roommate. 10 or so minutes later, I pulled into a truck stop to refuel and grab us some breakfast. When I returned to the car, he was rubbing the sand from his eyes while staring blearily around. Where are we? Almost at our destination. At least from the directions you gave me. Woke up just in time, kid. I'll need you to guide me through the rest of the way. Oh, yeah, I remember now. His greedy gaze went up to my coffee. Did you get me something? Yeah, a sandwich and a coffee. It's in the paper bag. Thanks, boss. The coffee vapor rose up to greet our noses. I could almost have cried right then and there. It was my first cup of coffee in a week that didn't smell like burnt or like stale instant powder. Storm seemed to feel the same way. He dove right in and almost burned his tongue. We ended up holding our cups in front of the AC to cool them down. The first sip tasted like sex. Damn good coffee, Storm. Damn good coffee. And they didn't even cheap out on the sandwiches filling either. I'd never had guessed this truck stop right here would have the best food in the hinterlands. Storm guffawed and spoke between chomps. Hardly bites, definitely chomps, of a sandwich. Nah, we're outside of it by now, and the place I want to take you to is just further ahead. I hope it's worth our while. Oh, it will be. Maybe not in further investigation, but I promise you're gonna love it. I was thinking last night about those rites you taught me. The paperclip, the drinking, and the talking, but mainly the purification one. Seeing as you're all about getting yourself rid of bad energy, I think you'll like what I have in mind. Is it a salt place or something? Because if it is, I'm not sure if it's worth all the time I took to get here. No, it's way better. It's a neat little place I found while running away for a few years back. Ended up staying there for about a week or so. Only reason I didn't stay longer is that it's in the middle of nowhere, so getting food wasn't easy. You better not be wasting our time, kid. I finished my coffee and turned on the engine. So, Storm didn't want to finish chewing and swallowing before he spoke. The coffee and food seemed to have given him an eagerness, as well as an impatience. Just keep going straight ahead. I'll point you in the right direction. With that, we set off. I drove eastward for 10 more minutes, per Storm's instructions, taking a right down a bumpy road between the two fenced properties. I drove eastward for 10 minutes before per Storm's instructions, taking a right down a bumpy clay road between two fenced-in properties. Hold on tight. A short while later, the fields gave way to a quaint trail sidelined by wizened trees. Their bark was shriveled and rough, and their branches still sported a brave covering of leaves. Further still, and then we reached a dead end. Beyond it, there was no road, only brush. And not even 20 steps in, I could already hear rushing water. I almost tripped as we climbed down some craggy rocks, but Storm's clacking hooves somehow held firm. On the underside of some trees, unusually green canopy, I could see the dappled reflection of a natural pool, or maybe a tiny lake. How's that for purification and running water, boss? And more than that, here's a lot of hot spring of drinkable mineral water. Damn, I didn't expect the hinterlands to have a place like this. By the time that stream there runs down the valley, it starts stagnating. Ain't of much use then. The thing is, it's too out of the way to become a trendy place for tourists, and who the hell would want to visit a hot spring when the weather's so damn warm already? No one's come out here, save for some of the farmhands, and even then, only when it's dark and breezy. We should have a whole place to ourselves. Real living water. Mineral salts, a pure and beautiful place. Maybe it is just because of my week in the hinterlands, but the sight took my breath away. Storm, I gotta hand it to you. This was well worth the drive. Well, a deal's a deal, I guess. Guess it's bathing time for Birdie. I began to unbutton my shirt and walked ahead of him. Took us a while to get here, so we shouldn't waste any time, right? After hanging my shirt on the branch, setting my folded pants on a rock, I approached the spring's edge. I wet a foot to check the water's temperature. It was hot enough to be almost unbearable at first, but a minute or two of dipping my toes in got me acclimated. I expected to hear the shuffling of more clothes being removed, but there was only the idle tapping of Storm's hooves on the stony shore past the dull roar of the waterfall. Storm was keeping himself half turned away from me, but every now and then his eyes would glance over. Curious, huh? I was almost tempted to put a bit of a show for him, see how bad I could get the kid flustered. However, my better judgment won out in the end. Wow, Storm doesn't have legs. At last, I stepped in, and I waited out until the water was at my waist. Jesus, this is almost boiling. Are you sure it's safe, Storm? Yeah, it's fine once you get used to it. Just don't stay in for too long. It actually ends up making the rest of the day feel a little cooler by comparison. And with that, I took a deep breath and dunked myself down all the way. It felt like I was on fire. The water seeped into my feathers, and down into my skin. It burned as it soaked me through. I curled up in the spring's depths like as I was suffering the worst cramp of my life. It got into my eyes. The darkness behind my eyelids flashed red, and I almost screamed. The only thing that stopped me was the sensation of something's coming undone. The stiffness came out of my feathers. The cramp dissipated. The water washed something away. I stayed underwater until my lungs burned. And as soon as I surfaced, gasping and looking around, I saw a ring of white sediment floating around me. I cupped a bit of what it was in my hands and examined it in my palm. Was that salt? It seemed so, but shouldn't it have dissolved already? Had all that had been on me? I rubbed my arms, and more sediment kept coming off. I could almost wring it out of my feathers. Hey, Storm, can you come over here and check something for me? What's up? There's some weird dirt in the water. Have you ever seen something like this? Like white sand coming off you while bathing here? Oh yeah, that's always out of my fur when I wash up here. First time I dove in, I spent a good half hour getting it all off. How about your second time? It disappeared after my third or fourth, but when I spent a while away and came back, it was there again. Figured that was just like dandruff or something, but you're getting it too. Can feathers even get dandruffed? Could it have been some kind of defilement from the hinterlands? If so, then it's probably a good idea for Storm to take a dip in as well, if it had been a while for him as well. I think you should come in and cleanse yourself too. No, I only suggested we come here because I thought you'd like it. Don't feel like doing it this time of day. Just get in here. I think you might have some weird dirt on you too. Really? I shower every day, you know? This is supernatural stuff. A regular shower won't do. Come on, kid. He huffed and pouted, and glared at me like I had just insulted him. But at least he chucked off his clothes, leaving them in an untidy pile on the rocks. I kept my eyes, all of them, above his waist, and splat as he splashed in the pool to join me. Well, let's see how this goes, boss. Storm dunked himself underwater, and then twisted back and forth like he was just pretending to be washing a machine. It would have almost been cute in its childness if it wasn't for the weird white sediment flowing off his whole body. Storm heaved himself out of the water. He shook his head and blinked his eyes, then stared at the ring surrounding him. Jeez, this much? Maybe you're right, boss. It's all right to not shower so much if I'm still just gonna get all this crap on me. I told you it's supernatural. You just need to be a good boy and shower, so you don't start stinking worse than you already do. The unruly calf splashed me and bellowed out a laugh. I know, boss. Just being a little shit. Guess he must have gotten that from somewhere. I noticed that the splash had washed off a little more sediment from my neck than chest. And so we spent a long while just wringing ourselves out, with the occasional splash between us, of course. He really was just a kid, after all, so I didn't mind letting him have his fun as payment for bringing me to that place. Soon enough, we weren't letting out any more defilement. So how do you feel? Better, I guess. Coming here was always good for getting myself relaxed. How do you feel, boss? Right as rain. Thank you, Storm. This is really a good way to start the day. We waded back to shore together, hoping that the cleansing would lead to a good fortune in our search. Of course, that was when we realized neither of us had brought a towel. Ah, shit, I almost forgot. What? It's September 7th. Shit, you're right. I've been drifting so long, I barely remember which days are holidays anymore. That means some spots around town are going to be closed. Just something to keep in mind. I didn't know this. You know, now that you mention it, what? Forget it. Just a stupid idea I just had. It ain't worth it. Now you got me curious. Don't leave me in the dark. Just say it. Alright, if you insist. So every year there's a parade in the grounds of Pura to celebrate Independence Day. I don't reckon we'll find anything about the Minotaur's hotel there, but it could be fun if you just want to relax for a day. I'll think about it. Oh wow, like every place is closed. Okay. We've been there. Yeah, why not? Right? Town, right? Storm, are you ready to go? The kid was sitting on the bed. He stared with a look of deep concentration at his hooves, and had one finger sticking through his ear gauge. Is something the matter? It's nothing. Hell, with how droopy his ears were, I was half expecting him to tell me he had some internal terminal disease. It's clearly something, kid. The charm always works, right? I mean, I'm not gonna lie when it says always. His fur bristled like a cat's. Look, I don't want to brag, but I'm good at making charms. Didn't even have a lot to work with when making yours, but you won't be finding anyone who can craft one as good as mine. Besides, with the Latin rite I performed, yours won't malfunction that easily. Hell, I told you, the main downside to charms like yours is that you'll be forgotten quicker than normal, which is a plus if that's your worry. Okay, so, like in a crowd when someone brushes against my shoulder and stuff, will they still think I'm human? They won't see my horns or make a big deal about it, like, it's a lot of people, and only a little magic, so does it run out? Nah, that's not how it works. This sort of magic doesn't run out like that. Some magic does require an energy source, so those can run out of power. But that ain't my style. What we do in my tradition is closer to pacts, oaths, promises, that sort of stuff. Closed circuit, no outside power necessary. Suffice to say, being around a crowd won't make your charm any better or worse. But if you think it'll help, you could stay away from the crowd and watch from afar. Would that work for you? The kid grumbled as affirmative as a grumble could get. I think so, yeah. Alright, let's go then. Storm showed me which street the parade would run down on the map, and made sure to park in a good central location facing it, not a handful of meters away. Completely unnoticed by the crowd between us and the street, much to Storm's delight. In the distance between the sound of stomping and marching, Storm leaned forward in anticipation. I leaned back for a moment of relaxation after a long week. The first and only real float in the procession was that I assumed to be a mayor and some other town official standing in the back of the pickup, waving. Storm craned his neck to watch as they puttered by. Still a kid. Afterwards, a brass band passed by in front of us, making damn well sure the whole hinterlands could hear them. Same old parade standard renditions of the national state anthems plus a few 4-0. Okay. 4-0? Songs from the local radio. Then I caught something out of the corner of my eye. Storm's ears kept wiggling, readjusting, just moving around while he had this look of consternation on his face. Something's wrong? It's just, the instruments. They're all out of tune. Really? Can't you hear it? That, like, wobble. As far as shitty marching bands from shitty small towns go, it sounds pretty normal to me. Storm huffed. Could at least tune their damn instruments or some shit if they're gonna play that so loud. This sort of noise is just so straight up painful. I don't even know how they can stand being right there in the middle of it. I'd be going crazy. Considering the music you put on my phone, you're definitely an expert out of tune and noise. Storm snorted and almost jumped from his seat, and I saw exactly how close his horns were to puncturing my car's roof. Hey, first of all, fuck you. Second of all, the rock I like is all organized and stuff, so it's not out of tune. Being loud is good when it makes sense. This is just... nothing works. If you say so, kid. He turned away, pouting. Ain't even got ears. What do you know? I sighed. The last thing either of us needed was for him to mope for the rest of the day. For what's it worth, it really is a racket. I probably should have warned you that parades are kinda only fun for kids. I didn't want to be a complete wet blanket and say you're too grown up for it, since you've never been to one at all. But well, now you've got another experience under your belt. That counts for something, right? I guess that makes sense. Thanks for the experience, boss. Anytime, kid. And so we stayed there, watching the parade from afar. AC blowing on our faces as the sun kept rising. I think Storm even enjoyed it after a while, and I did too. It reminded me a bit of my grandpa. Storm must have figured out I was lost in thought. He gave me one of those worried glances from time to time. As for me, I suppose I got into the talking mood. I saw the parade here once with my gramps. If I remember right, we stood just a few blocks down from here. There was a stretch of time when Dad had to come here for business. Mom didn't know how to cook, so he didn't like me staying alone with her, which is why I used to tag along and stay with Gramps. I was 6 years old when my grandpa took me to the parade. I know it was then for sure, because that's when I started shedding my baby feathers. My people, when we're born, we have brown feathers. Over time, the boys shed all of them and grow a new, more colorful set. I was 6 when it started for me, and I recall Gramps being so proud. He was talking all about it when we came here. He got me a pinwheel, in green and blue because of the feathers. But the air around town was still as death as day, and I got so upset when it wouldn't spin. Started blowing on them as hard as I could, but that didn't do much. Then Gramps put me on his shoulders and, while I raised my arms as hard as I could, it spun. Well, later that day the pinwheel broke. I still kept it during my stay there, but it must have been thrown away sometime later. It's weird what I wouldn't give today to hold that paper pinwheel again. It must have been buried deep in some landfill, all decomposed from 20 years of abandonment, but in my mind it's still so vivid on some level. I feel like it should still be right where I left it in Grandpa's place, and I feel horrible knowing that's not true. Same goes for Gramps. He had a closed casket funeral, you know? So I didn't even get to see him one last time. And at least sometime I saw him alive. I had no idea it'd be, well, our final moments together. Well, our final moments alive. Sometimes I find myself so sure he must still be around somewhere. All the precious moments we had together feel so small compared to all the inconsequential shit. It hurts knowing how little of our time together we all spent. But I suppose the more we love someone, the more unforgivable it becomes to know they died. If he wasn't so dear to me, I wouldn't be feeling this pain. What was it like being around him? I was happy. Mom didn't care for me, and Dad always treated me like shit. But Gramps, though, he just loved me. From the day I was born all the way till his last moments. I never have been so sure of anything in my life. At night, we'd stay on the porch and he'd tell me all the stories he knew. From the old gods of Greece to Jesus and all the saints. He taught me about the constellations, and when I learned them all, he made me up new ones. Love's a very real thing, you know. A child needs it as much as they need food, water, and shelter. And if they don't get it, it's kind of malnourishment, you know? It leaves scars and marks. Their bones grow all weak, and their eyes, you can see it in their eyes. I suppose I'd be even more fucked up today if I didn't have Gramps to set me on my decent path. You know, he taught me my first right, you know? He taught me my first rights too. I swallowed the searing knot in my throat. There's a special bond between a right master and their apprentice. It's when you're initiated into the tradition we practice, a piece of the master is passed on to the apprentice. By inheriting a piece of someone who was initiated before you, you become attuned with their heritage and may partake of it. I inherited a piece of my grandfather, and with me, crafting your charm as I did, you're carrying a piece of me, him, and everyone who came before us. I gave you something very dear to me when I made you that charm, so take care of it, please. You know, sir, before you came along, this gauge is one of the only things I actually owned. It was mine, so I wanted to take as good care of it as I could. But that right you did makes it something actually, powerful. It means something. I don't know what I'm saving, sir, but I just wanted to let you know, I'll take care of this memory of your Gramps, and that's a promise. God damn it, kid. Are you trying to make me tear up or something? He and I leaned into our back seats, just staring at the windshield at the sight before us together. A precious moment, so much bigger than all the inconsequential shit. Then, in the middle of the crowd, I saw it. That little flash of color. He was right in the middle of the advancing crowd. I couldn't waste a second. Can you wait here for me? There's something I want to do outside. It'll only take a minute. I didn't wait for Storm's answer. Just unbuckled my seat and pushed through myself out. Almost tripped. And, Christ almighty, it hurt like hell when I plucked myself a feather that got caught in the door. Fucking. I looked back at Storm, wide-eyed, not knowing a thing what was going on. Just wait here. Then I ran into the crowd. For as much as my ass hurt, I guess there was some value in being able to see what Storm got up to when he was left to his own devices in my car. I couldn't make sure he was still enjoying his first parade. Did keep me pretty distracted though, while I bumped through the crowd of revelers with their flasks and popcorn. Taking every opportunity to be a damn voyeur, huh? I grunted. I shook the thought away and tried to maintain my split attention while hunting for my prize. Storm adjusted the AC. In doing so, he caught a glimpse of my green plumage, still stuck right where I'd left it. Storm leaned over across the car and opened the door to release a feather. After a cursory dusting, he stared at it, held it gently in his hands, squeezed the quill, rolled it between his fingers, and even lifted it to his ear and listened to how the flews bristled against them. When he brought it down again, his gaze locked firmly onto my lost eye. He stared deeply into it, like he was searching for something. Are you seeing me too, kid? He let out a little huff, then his gaze returned to the parade, maybe keeping an eye out for me weaving through the crowd. His examination, cum staring contest, finished. He slid my feather into the sun visor above him. Now that you're done ogling, get a move on and stop looking like a confused oaf. When I returned, not a minute or two later, I waved to catch his attention. I was already sweating from my time under the sun and eager to get back into the AC. Was careful to keep my tail well clear of the door this time too. Here, this is for you. It wasn't exactly like what I remembered. The yellow was already treacly and blue looked like it was already bleaching in the sun. But God, I really was happy when it spun and I walked back and I handed over to the kid. Storm began to laugh, stifled it. Well, that's fair. I poked fun at you, so go on. Have at me. That's what you get for rambling like a fucking schizo. No, I didn't. I mean, I don't mean it like that. Really, honest. It's just surprising is all. He gave the pinwheel a thorough once-over, feeling the paper's different textures, then turned to me again. Thank you, boss. He blew into the pinwheel, still stifling a chortle. It spun with ease, not at all how I remembered it. I was glad for that. The streetlights were swarmed by clouds of bugs, all driven wild by breeding season. Their shadows speckled and crawled on every surface, like stitched together centipedes. I looked down and imagined I could see them skittering over my Storm's chest. Even if they weren't actually there, I could almost feel each pinprick leg digging against my feathers and skin. Feels like they're crawling all over me. Do you feel it too? Yeah, but I'm used to it. Don't even bother me much anymore, except when they get on my ears. Up ahead was John Super's greatest hangout spot, ZZ's bar, which could only be described as a set of 3 canvas tents on the median of a street. It had about a dozen plastic tables and chairs scattered around, all colored and branded, with an assortment of beer logos. The counter was just 3 stacked wooden boxes, covered by a length of canvas, recycled from a truck's covering. Music, tinny and half static, played from a park sound truck. Some of the patrons milled about while others danced, and all the tables were taken. Storm seemed a bit unfamiliar with what one even does at a bar. I elbowed his arm and motioned for him to follow me. He and I took our seats at the counter, on the wobbly wooden stools, and then it all fit in like a clockwork. Time became perfect. All of a sudden, the coolness of the night air was noticeable. The dull roar of folks talking mingled with the garbled radio into a swarm of sea of even sound. The music seeped down my back and undid every vial of knot riddling it. I breathed out, pressed my shoes onto the beaten dirt, and looked up and to find a brick wall of a man looking down at us. He smelled of stale beer and bitter sweat. The cup he was holding was tiny, almost toy-like in his monstrously big hands. His nostrils shook with each slow, ponderous wheeze, and with every step became the sound of creaking knees. Sweat dripped from his forehead onto the counter, and he wiped it up with the same stain rag he used to polish the glasses. That was Zeze himself, proprietor of that fine establishment. Before I'd even noticed, he had already taken our order. He ducked behind the counter, pulled out a tall bottle of cheap watery lager, and cracked it open with a movement too smooth and perfect to be rehearsed. He poured my drink into an ancient scratch Pyrex cup, the very same kind the inn used to serve coffee, and no doubt used here for the same purpose as well. Vertical grooves going from the bottom up to 10 or so meters, with a thin horizontal rim at the top, perfect for the most effective mass production, made without a single care for soul aesthetics or marketability. Zeze poured a Storm's drink into a mismatched cup, then got us a portion of fries. The kid and I shared a silent toast, already feeling how cold the beer was. It was perfect. Your grandpa used to come here a lot. And I'm told you're the reason he got cirrhosis. Surprised you remember them all. I have a good memory. As for his cirrhosis, if it weren't me, it'd be someone else. At least I watered his drinks down. That ought to be worth something. Not that it mattered much in the end. Storm tried to follow the conversation, as the proprietor and I talked, keeping his ears vaguely aimed in my direction. Once the buzz started hitting him, though, his eyes and attention began to wander. I glanced over and found him looking a bit satisfied with himself for finally sitting at this counter. Just another unremarkable face in the crowd. So you work for the Colonel's widow now? No, sir. I don't want to get involved with any of that business. Not exactly looking for a job here. Huh? Word's been going around that you've been in town, and with all the mess going over there, I was betting you'd get involved. Just like your gramps. No, sir. Then what brings you down to drown to purr? I'm just here on some inheritance business of my own, is all. Your grandpa left an inheritance? What did he have to pass on? If my time here's been any indication, grief and debt and nothing more, though. Though I did reconnect with a cousin of mine on the way here. He raised an eyebrow, giving Storm a dubious look. Cousin, that's a good one. Someone got horns growing in a family tree of yours. My eyes stayed locked onto him, over the rim of my cup, and I took a slow sip. I racked my brain for everything I heard about Zeze. Either from my grandpa, himself, or my dad. I racked my brain for everything I've heard about Zeze, either from grandpa himself or my dad. If they had ever told me he was like us, a mythical, I didn't have any recollection of it. If I suppose you're right, Storm here does look a bit different from me, assuming you got a keen eye. That I do, or so I'd like to think. I continued looking up at him, staring at his face, trying to notice a trickle at the back of my mind, or a strand fuzziness in my vision. Even the best made charms aren't completely perfect. If you know what to look for, there's always some kind of tell. Some way to make it malfunction. Keener than mine, it would seem. Considering you knew my dear old Gramps, would you happen to know anything about his search for a certain hospitality establishment? He laughed, in perfect intervals. The humorless sound of it tightened the knots in my back right up again. Oh, I bet you do. I spent a dozen years telling your Gramps all about it, but he never listened. Now is my chance to save you from his madness. It's not madness. Oh, give up. Go home. Stop chasing a madman's dream. Wasn't enough for one of your relatives to waste his life on his lie. You're young. You should. You have a good future ahead of you if you play the right cards. What else am I supposed to do? And even if you don't, that's better than dying alone and hated like your Gramps. How can I? Whatever your reason for coming here to look for that hotel, let it go. Stop searching for a magical fix for your issues and solve them yourself. The bastard Zeze finished his speech and started cleaning glasses again. I just nursed my drink. The kid looked over and gave me a concerned frown. I must have looked like I just had been shot. P, you doing alright? Yeah, just thinking is all. Hey lad, that girl over there has been eyeing you for a while now. The kid grunted, his eyes wide and half expected to see the fur on the back of his head and neck stand up. It was like all the confusion as to how to act in a bar had suddenly returned. Which one, sir? Over there dancing, the blonde hair with the roots showing. Storm tried to straighten his hair, and for once in his life, be subtle about as he attempted to look over nonchalantly without fully looking. Go on, and have your fun, Storm. Dance with her. I'll give you some cash to buy her a drink. His ears went fully red as he looked away from me, which forced him to finally make eye contact with the girl. Storm gave the most timid wave you could see from a man in the hinterlands, and she beckoned him over. The kid threw his drink back, looked to me, steeled his nerves, and went to chat her up. Zay and I couldn't hear him, but we could see him speaking with a clipped and halted awkwardness. She seemed quite charmed, however, giggling and moving to entice. I downed my cup. Storm shook his head and shrugged his shoulders. She gave him a cartoonish pout and asked something. Storm shrugged again. As drunk young women are wont to do, she gave him a hug before waving down another young woman at the table and tottering off. Storm strolled back on over. Lad, what the hell was that? You didn't want to dance? She seemed fun, but she's not, she's not my type. Shame. She seemed fun. P, is something wrong? Out of the corner of my vision, I saw Zay make himself busy at the corner at the end of the counter, bastarding me and offer me another drink. Storm, I know I'm not crazy. I know my grandpa wasn't lying, and I know that this place exists because I've seen it. I'm having visions of it at night, just like Gramps used to have. It's everything he described, down to the last detail. But we've spent a whole week digging around the shithole, and we're no closer to finding it, and I have no idea where to go from here. What the hell do we even have to show for it? What are you smoking, you daft cunt? We laid the spirits of 12 dead to rest, and ended this hellhole's course by restoring a fucking god. Sure, we didn't find the hotel you're looking for, but you and me've been working miracles around here. I know you ain't finding the leads you were hoping for. You're doing good, but you're doing good. You're helping this place more than I think anyone has. Hell, you've been helping me more than anyone else has, boss. You ain't failing nobody, and I bet your Gramps be goddamn proud. I gotta stop bearing my soul to this son of a bitch if he's gonna keep saying the exact right thing to get me welling up. That big oaf Zay just let out a huff and shook his head while putting away my glasses. Fuck, don't lose it, where every goddamn one can see you. It's fine. Fuck Zay and every goddamn one else. Thanks, Storm, for putting up with my shit. He laughed and gave me a pat on the back. That nearly knocked me off my stool. It's what you're paying me for, ain't it? Plus, we got a whole other week to go before you have to go back to the city, right? I'm sure we can find something about the hotel with all that time. Assuming it exists in the first place. You said it yourself. You know it's out there, because you saw it. Hey Zay, give me another beer and make it colder than death. Can't believe you got drunk that quickly. I may have had a few too many, but I knew damn well the kid was really drunk. And off a few beers too. Still, had to practice drinking for his size. He wasn't carrying me, we were leaning on each other as we walked back to the hotel. He stood like a gentleman and shut the door while I went and collapsed backwards onto the bed. Just needed to lie down until I felt a little less dizzy. I have to find the hotel. It's not about the inheritance. Storm sat beside me. Then what's it for? For my dad and myself. But mainly for my own peace of mind. Grandpa worked for the colonel, my dad works for a private security firm, and I work for the federal police. That's our purpose. All we're really good for, or at least that's what I've been told all my life. I know I told you what I did during my time on the force, did I? Nah, and he didn't like me being too nosy, so I never asked. Well, it's very simple, really. Are you familiar with the concept of panopticon? Panopticon, okay. No. Very well. Where should I start? We just need to sleep. Us peacocks and these feathers of ours aren't just for show. Each one has a functional eye. In fact, they're better than regular eyes. I can still see just fine through the feathers I plucked for myself, and sometimes I can see through the charms I've made with them. His hand went through the gauge of his ear, pinching and rubbing it. And they even grow back too. When you say that we're perfect security guards, where are you going with this? Well, I work for the police, but that doesn't mean what I did was right or even legal. To put it bluntly, my job was doing what we call mass surveillance. My superiors knew exactly what I was capable of. It's why they hired me in the first place, you know? And it just started simple enough. See, a few years back, they installed some fancy surveillance network. For national security reasons, of course. But what's 10,000 cameras good for if no one's watching them? So that's when I did. Watch and report everything that went on. Does that sound right to you? Well, can't say I know much about the law, but if you're doing nothing wrong, then why should I worry? Good folk want to get affected by it. Listen, no. It may be sound acceptable at first, but what happens when you catch a few fellow police officers doing something wrong? You report it? Oh, Storm. You delete it and make it look like a computer error. That was the next step after I settled into the position. And what you do then, and what do you think happens then when, let's say, someone on the force just gets a feeling that someone's doing something wrong? Do you go to a judge and get a warrant? Yeah? No. You come and get me to stalk him for you. And what happens when an officer's mad at his ex, or when an investigation needs a stronger case? So they ask for a few recordings, or maybe they need a few recordings to disappear. I sat up. I didn't look at the storm, but I could see his eyes on me. Or when a politician, simply put, doesn't like that they're being recorded somewhere they don't want to be seen, maybe they're doing something very wrong. Go on. He's finally seeing you for who you really are. He learned about it somehow, eventually, so might as well rip off the bandage now. You'll be doing him a favor if he starts hating you too. He's not dumb. He knows what's good for him. He'll leave tonight, so you just pretend you're passed out from the beer and let him. You know, there have been cases of police officers that what they do is keep a second illegal gun at home. Then 5 or so of them pool together the money to buy a stolen motorbike, and they keep it unplated so they can. Never mind, let's not get into that. I think you understand now that my time working for the police was far more from exemplary. You know what the best part was, though? The funniest part, that is. Storm nodded. I could tell you I quit because it was too much. And I wanted to stick to my morals, but that'd be a lie. It's because they bought a fancy artificial intelligence system that would do my job at a fraction of the cost. Turns out computers are just better than magic. I I did. I did want to quit because it was wrong, you know? But that's the real reason. I was just on my way to being obsolete. Ha! Even the pay really was nothing special either. The ugly squawking laugh again, as if you weren't enough of a deplorable piece of shit. You could kill anyone's eardrums with that. Storm stared down at his shuffling hooves. Keep going, show him how close he was to being pulled into your spiral. My grandpa was the only one in the family who didn't want to do his job back. Yeah, what the fuck am I doing? My grandpa thought. My grandpa was the only one who didn't do. My grandpa was the only one who didn't. Only one in the family who didn't want to do this kind of business. That's why he kept chasing the hotel. He hoped it was his way out. He always told me to keep going, Keep trying. Okay. He always told me to keep trying to do good. That's why he told me to keep trying to do good. That's why I want to find it. To prove that I can do something right and good for once in my life. If I can't, then it's right back to whatever job my dad wrangles for me next. Probably doing some same shit as before, but for a private firm. Go on, kid. I know what you're thinking. I'm a mess. I don't deserve to have you seeing me as a hero. You don't even need to waste your time with me anymore. Just say what's on your mind. God damn you. So, you still think I'm a good person? Why'd you take that job? Because everything else I tried failed, and I had bills to pay. I actually had a better job before all this mess. I tried to do good for a while, but it just kept coming back to shit again and again. So one day, I just gave in to Dad and took the job offer he got for me. I could only remain unemployed for so long, you know. His fists were clenched, his brow was pursed in thought. Every breath he took was shallow, intense. What's the matter? You want to punch my lights out? Go on. It's the least I deserve from you. How's that any different from stealing to survive? You wanted to stop. You just couldn't. Meanwhile, I stopped because I had to. I was gonna be fired either way. That doesn't matter. You did what you had to do to survive. And yeah, it was bad, but now what? He let out a little huff. Not quite angry, but lively with anxiety. You gonna feel real sorry for yourself? Cry. He grabbed my shoulder, rough, and I could feel his hand trembling. Look at me, you piece of shit. You're so up your own ass that, with all the bullshit about your grandfather, the hotel, and doing something right, but you look at me. He forced me to look him in the eyes, glaring red and watery. I was ready to die because my life was and always would be hell. But then you came around and a single night you gave me a future. After this is done, I'll be able to hold a job, go to school, maybe even get a degree or some shit. Ain't that good enough for you? What? You some emperor or something? And a little life like mine don't matter one way or the other to you. You did a bunch of fucked up shit for sure. But you ain't doing it more anymore, and I'm real, damn it. Helping others matters, and you help me. I'm the living fucking proof you can do right. Maybe that ain't the hotel you were looking for, but if all you wanted was proof you could do something good, then you can stop your search. You have a real life Minotaur to vouch for you now. And if you feel so bad about that damn job of yours, then fuck. Like, listen to your own goddamn advice. Go to school, learn something new for God's sake. And for the love of that's holy, stop with your bullshit. Just be normal for once in your life. Before I could say anything, he pulled me forward and wrapped his arms tight around me. Maybe just so he could half yell into my ear. And don't be a cunt when I'm only trying to be nice. Don't go moping about your dad treating you like shit. And most of all, who the fuck calls his kid P? What the fuck kind of name is that? Storm released me from his hug, but kept hold of my shoulders. I ain't falling for that, and that's why you're a sad cunt. You're just so stuck up in your own ass you won't even tell people your fucking name. He shook me. I must have been staring off into space. I forced myself to look at him and nodded. He was right. All this time I've been moping and crying, and he stayed right by my side through all my bullshit. I sniffled and wiped my eyes, and I swallowed hard so I can give him the apology he deserved. I really should just... Oh, no you don't, you fucking asshole. No more bullshit. No more being a sad, angry goddamn cunt. And no more feeling sorry for yourself. You want to do him right? You want to be the kind of mentor he deserves? then pull your head out of the goddamn ass and listen to what he's telling you for once. You're right. Damn right I am. Storm paced a few steps. We're doing this the right way now. No more sass or stupid mystery bullshit, you hear? I'm not Storm. That's just a nickname I was given when I tried joining a gang. My real name's Oscar. What's yours? I let all the air drift out of my lungs, let my entire body deflate and relax. Before my next big breath made me look back up at him again. My grandpa called me Pedro. Now that's the kind of normal name I wanted to hear. It suits you. With introductions out of the way, we both allowed semi-shy awkwardness to wash over us, glancing to each other, then looking away, then peeking from the corner of our respective vision. Moments like that are why I could be accused of avoiding earnestness. Where the hell do you even go from there? I should have expected you to be called Oscar. Why is that? 'Cause you're a real prize. Ah, boss, you're fucking great. Morning. It was about 8 a.m. I had returned from eating some crackers in the restaurant, and I was ready to head out, but Storm was still in the bathroom. I could hear the shower and the clopping of hooves on the tiled floor. Oscar, I made you some coffee. You almost done? Alright, just give me a minute. I was checking over my notes when there was a knock on the door of the room. I got up to answer, and greeted with by a nun. Good morning. Are you the one about Zazino the other day? Yes. Alright. That day she came in to help her brother, the receptionist. I hardly got a good look at her back then, but I could recognize her stern and dry voice. The nun looked much more put together than she had that morning, and she was holding a brick of cheese in her arms. Yes, and how is he doing? He's okay. He didn't die, thanks to you. I'm sure he would have. No, really, he could have died, and he's finally going to get himself into rehab. And I just wanted to thank you. Pay back for the favor, you know? God knows he ain't gonna think some angelic bird came to him when he was stoned to save him and tell him to stop. At least it might get him coming back to the church. Anyway, I brought you this to show you for your gratitude. She brandished a sizable mass of grease and fat and lactose, all wrapped up in nice, neat, and plastic zipper bag, at me. It ain't much, but maybe a tourist would appreciate a local delicacy as a souvenir. I'd be delighted. I'm just really quite glad I could help. When I put my hands on the cheese block to accept it, however, she didn't let go. Her free hand shot up to mine and pulled me up and down closer. Listen, this is a real way I'm paying back for my brother. I came here to warn you. Last night there was a shootout at the Colonel's mansion. It was the cause of the inheritance dispute. And I can tell you there are corpses. I have it on good authority that someone will come here soon looking for you. You ought to leave now for your own safety. When she leaned back again, she smiled at me with eyes full of anxiety. I nodded. Thank you for this. My pleasure, city boy. My father knew your grandfather, actually. They were pretty good friends. Took me a while to recognize the resemblance. I'd say, come visit again sometime, but considering what's happening now, don't come back. Yeah. You'd be safe. And make sure that beefcake you tote around stays safe too. I'll make goddamn sure of it. She crossed herself before saying goodbye. By the time Storm got out of the bathroom, I was shoving the big plastic bag block of cheese into my suitcase. Sorry. So, we're leaving. What? But we don't have to. Not anymore, we don't. I'll explain in the car, but we need to get the fuck out of here. Something dangerous is happening at the Colonel's, and we're heading to the city now. Oscar was stunned, but nodded. I tossed him my keys. Just finish gathering up your stuff and put in the car. I'll go pay for the room and meet you there. Oscar took a deep breath, squared his shoulders, and gave me another nod. I'll take this now, and then do a final sweep of the room, sir. The kid damn near tore my suitcase right out of my hands, perhaps overeager or over-nervous from my lack of explanation, and stomped out through the doorway. He halted just outside, however, and felt around his pocket, took something out, wiggled in his fingers, and tossed a handful of little wire fragments over his left shoulder. Only then did he continue stopping off to the car. I'm proud of you, Oscar. History just keeps repeating, doesn't it? Grandpa tried escaping from the Hinterlands years ago. And that's how he found the Minotaur's hotel. And on that morning, I couldn't stop my heart from racing as I looked into the horizon, hoping it might reveal itself. But there was nothing save for the emptiness of that desert, stretching as far as the eye could see, and dotted with the husks of trees long dead. I was almost panicking when we left the drowned Tapir, with all thoughts about the hotel running around, but a single look at Oscar was enough to put everything in order. I knew exactly what to do and where to go. Our destination was my apartment. I never told anyone where I live, and I was careful to put a fake address when I checked, so I knew we should be safe. Just as we were leaving, a cloud of moss flew overhead, and that too brought me to a measure of peace. I stepped on the gas and tore through the last stretch of the hinterlands. Only after I felt all of its evil letting go of me, and did I allow myself to breathe easy. The kid took notice of it. Pedro, what's gonna happen now? We're going to go to my place. We'll be safe there. But what about the hotel? I don't know. Our safety comes first. I'll figure out the rest later. He looked down and then twiddled his thumbs. Was he sad? Shouldn't he be happy that we're getting out of this hellhole? Maybe his issue is not getting to say his goodbyes. You want to call your family? Tell them you're skipping town? He bit his lip. No thanks. Shouldn't you tell Nini, though? She might be worried. I unlocked my phone and handed it over to Oscar. He navigated through his contact list, or my contact list, and called. Hello? I didn't recognize the voice. I assumed it was one of the granddaughters. Hi, it's me. I was there about a week ago to talk with Nini. Can I have a word with her for a minute, please? I heard something rustling. I assumed she covered the phone with a hand, and then some incomprehensible muttering. Hello? Nini can't talk right now. She's not well. She's having a medical emergency. She isn't being herself right now. I could barely make out her voice yelling in the background. Where's my salt? It all tastes wrong. It burns. Everything is wrong. It's killing me. The Tapir's eating me from the inside out. Did she just say something about the Tapir? Yeah, she's been ranting about the Tapir's all... Who's that? Is that the peacock? A plate breaking as it hit the floor, wood being thrown around, the young lady's shriek, and then Nini's ragged breathing. It was you. You ruined everything. I was going to live forever. And you. The call disconnected. What the fuck was that? I don't know. This smells real bad. But there's no use in speculating now. For now, we'd better focus on the road and then we can try again. I can plan another trip. I'll just have to be more discreet next time. Maybe a month or two to let things settle down and... P? No, it isn't safe and won't be for who knows how long. Forget about the damn hotel, you idiot. Pedro? Don't you have something better to do with your life? And then, let's forget about this whole hotel business, at least for a while. We can look into getting you in school or a job and a passport. But what about your inheritance? Fuck it. I stepped on the gas.